Hello and welcome to the first Talker Talk. We're going to be doing episodes on just general information about Cabo. We're going to talk about life, we're going to talk about real estate, and just general topics about the region here. So we're here with Fletcher. He's a very good friend of mine, and he's also the broker for RE Mexico. How are you, Fletcher?
Good, Tucker. Thanks for the invite, and look forward to be on episode 1 of Tucker Talks. It's going to overtake TED Talks here soon, so I'm glad to be on the first one.
Thank you. So basically, today we're going to go over some topics. You as a foreigner that already committed to living here in Cabo full time, you're working here, and so basically, the first question is, how do you feel about the quality of life in the region, in Los Cabos?
Okay, so when I obviously was living in the U.S., right? And now I have a wife and a son here. And I grew up all in my childhood was in the States, right? So, and I moved here like in the prime, right? A lot of people that move down to Cabo are kind of like retirees. I moved in the prime. I would say like the economic opportunity here has been great as well. But the quality of life that I have is, man, I could go on this like deep, just outdoors every day is great. You know, my son loves the water. One thing that really sticks out right now, dude, is with the elections and the political drama that's going on, like that is not really part of my life here, you know? So you have all these like other things. There's a lot of stuff in the States too, and I don't think anybody, you know, this is my particular situation, but it's called keeping up with the Joneses, where, you know, like you're with your classmates and then they're going to like get their MBA and stuff, and it's kind of like a race, and it's like when I was in the States, it was ingrained in my head to try to keep up with the next person, and that is absent, and maybe that was who I was there, and that's kind of like how I am here, but what I'm trying to say is like my quality of life, I don't need to go tell anybody that my life here is better. You know, a lot of people are like, man, when are you moving back? And I'm like, dude, why would I move back? You know, like I really love life here, but I also don't need to like throw that in somebody's face. A lot of people wouldn't believe that. I'm like, hey, that's fine. But the quality of life here in Cabo is great. You've got first world amenities, you know, you're in a big city, but you've got the beach. Tucker, we can go to a beach 30 minutes away that'll have nobody on it. You know, like if you go to Florida, or, you know, it's like you have these like massive and they're packed beaches, you know. So I could continue to talk about it, but the quality of life here is just something when you come and experience. It's not for everybody, but for me, I just love it. You can be outside every day.
Right. That's funny because on Sunday I actually went to one of my favorite beaches, which is out on Las Margaritas. And Sunday here in Cabo is where most of the public beaches are packed. But out there on the Pacific, it was just me, a friend, the dog, and we were all by ourselves. Got to enjoy a beautiful sunset. And like you say, there's a lot of outside activities that you can do. I mean, from surfing, kite surfing. You can do a lot of golf. As you know, we have world-class golfing. And like you said, we could go on and on about quality of life. And then there's that other part where you actually have a community where you get to live your life with the locals, with other foreigners. And I find it to be a very interesting mix of cultures that are living in the Los Cabos area, no?
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks. One question that I always get that I find and I hate it, but I'm gonna just throw it out there to you. What do you feel about how safe it is to be down here? It's a question that some people say, why are you going down to Mexico? And what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so it's just so misconstrued. So first of all, I'm from New Orleans. New Orleans in 2022 actually had more murders than DUIs. So like I come from a dangerous place. With that being said, I never felt like unsafe in New Orleans, but I come from one of the most dangerous, when you talk about murder per capita, you know, and you're talking about like top 50 of the world. And here's the thing is like, there's so many murders in New Orleans that they don't even make the news. Like here, if somebody falls over and they're a tourist and they get hurt, it's like, you know, it's up in the news. So first of all, it's misconstrued. Second of all, okay, let's get past that. Somebody who's like living here. I think if you're getting like hammered at night, like late in the morning, okay, you can be susceptible to nefarious things happening. But if you're asking me what is the most unsafe part about Cabo, it is without a doubt the carretera. The highway is dangerous. Like it is dangerous. You see accidents there on a daily basis, and like people are dying there. So like for me, the highway here is third world. You know, and that is by far the biggest thing. I remember when I first got here is like, you know, they pump the gas and sometimes they'll try to, you know, get one over on you. Like I think now with like the accent and everything, they know I'm local, so they don't try it anymore. But like these are the little things that were really different. It wasn't ever like I was walking around a corner and thought like somebody was gonna have a knife up to me or something, which, you know, like I said, I personally think, and people misconstrue Cabo with the rest of Mexico. And I tell people, you know, they're like, see something that happens on the border, and I'm like, man, that's like comparing Miami to Detroit. It just doesn't make any sense. You're talking about a country of 130 million people. So for me, Cabo is very safe, but there are some things like the highway that are, you know, where you see just like horrific traffic accidents here, you know?
So yeah, you have to be careful on the roads, driving at night, also with the cows. But like,
no, and that's what I'm saying. Like you had a friend who hit a cow the other day.
It's
funny because here's another thing. If you, the road from La Paz to Cabo, if you tell a tourist don't drive at night, the first thing that they're gonna think is like somebody's like out there, you know, gonna like shoot their tires out and kidnap. It's like, no, man. It's like literally like you will hit a cow going, you know, 60, 70 miles an hour and you're in the hospital. And I've heard that happening quite a bit. So yeah, traveling, and that's like, that whole road is not lit all the time, you know, it is in certain parts, but driving during the day is like highly recommendable.
Right, I've been here for now about 10 years. Moved from Ensenada in the San Diego area, and haven't had a single incident, you know, getting cash out from the ATMs, going to restaurants. I mean, I'm done with the nightlife or once in a while, but basically you can walk around downtown, you can walk around the marina, and I don't feel safe. I feel safe, sorry.
Yeah.
And so overall, the whole region is quite safe, like you said.
And to be honest, like when people are looking to buy real estate here and they ask me, is Cabo safe? Depending on what it is, I just kind of tell them, I said, look, man, I'm a little busy. And like if you actually think, if you're asking that question, you're not far enough along in your journey to be talking to me. Because I just have so much business happening right now that you need to, I suggest you come down here for a weekend, hang out, go back home, and then when you come back, we can talk. But if you actually really think that Cabo is dangerous, I think I have better things to be doing because I know people that love it here and are really actively looking to either buy or sell real estate.
Yeah, just come down and experience it and find out for yourself that it's a very safe place overall. I've driven the whole Baja just back and forth a bunch of times. Also, I've never had one single incident where I felt unsafe. You know, I've stayed over in Guerrero, Santa Rosalia overnight, and finished my drive the next day. So, all right. Do you need to speak English when you are down in Los Cabos?
Speak Spanish or English? So,
do you need to speak Spanish?
So, hablo español muy bien. Hablo español con mi esposa, mi familia. But the truth is, like, I speak Spanish. You do not need to speak Spanish here. Matter of fact, I mean, look, we have a guy that works in this office who's been here for 30 years that, you know, his Spanish is very limited. You know, he can get by, he can try. Here's the thing. So many people in Cabo, especially when you get to tourist areas, you know, like the hotels or the restaurants, these people's livelihood depends upon, you know, essentially foreigners buying food, you know, booking tours and things like that. So they understand that when they speak English and get it down, their chances of making money increases. So
Right.
I've had this man when I first got here, and I was fluent in Spanish before I got here. So I'd be like, hey man, you know, in Spanish, I'd be like, can I get an iced coffee? Like, and then he'd respond back in English like, hey, what type of milk? You know, and I'd respond back in Spanish. And I'm like, man, we're in Mexico, you know, like but I have to understand his point of view is like, first of all, I look like a gringo, right? But also he wants to practice his Spanish. And I tell this all the time. The older you get, the more your brain closes and the harder it gets to learn a foreign language. Like that is science. You know, like my son is 5 and he speaks better Spanish than me right now, you know? So a lot of people come down here and they're like, man, you know, a lot of them are retirees. They're like, hey, we're gonna learn Spanish. And I'm like, man,
Right.
you know, and that's like the only way I learned Spanish was when I was living in countries where they didn't speak English at all. Like I was in Colombia, I was in Argentina, you know, I was in Panama. And a lot of these areas you can find people that speak English, but like generally you go out on the street and get a coffee, you know, like you're full on immersion where you have to think, feel everything in Spanish. Here it's hard to do because it's just so prevalent. So no, you do not need to speak Spanish. However, locals do appreciate it, but we just had this conversation. A lot of people try to speak Spanish and like they appreciate it, but when it starts, it's like if you're talking to a first grader or like a toddler, you know, it's like, man, let's just switch to English and make this a little bit easier. You know, and it's painful. I was telling you, I was with somebody and they're trying to like order in Spanish and we're like, man, dude, it's like a 3-minute order. We're like, dude, just give him, like the guy, he speaks fluent English. Just go ahead and tell him.
Yeah, I mean, I do appreciate, especially people that have been living down here for some time, us as Mexicans, we do appreciate foreigners trying to make an effort.
Yeah.
You know, and then when you get to that point where, you know, it's hard to order from the menu, then you go ahead and switch it to English, like you say. Most of the places have bilingual waiters, so basically,
Yeah.
you can get along perfectly here. Okay, so we talked about the outdoor activities, so we won't go into that. How do you feel that you're socializing here? Do you feel your social life is growing here? Let's talk about a little bit of your social life. In
Yeah, I mean,
Cabo.
so for me, Cabo is like super cool because I grew up in Louisiana, and I honestly didn't have that many interactions with people on the West Coast. So whereas the majority of my clients are coming from California, yeah, Texas is Louisiana's neighbor, so a lot of Texans, but also a lot of people from Denver, a lot of people from Washington, a lot of people from
Right.
Arizona. You know, I didn't know anybody from Arizona when you know, like now I have like quite a few clients from Arizona, you know, Nebraska. So you meet a lot of people, and then, you know, it just depends. I'm like you, man. Like I don't do nightlife. I got a family. I'm generally at the house at like 8 o'clock, you know, and like might be swimming or whatever. So I think it's a great environment. You know, a lot of people that come down here, they're always, you know, like clients always want to go out to eat. So man, we're going all over the place. And just between that, just like clients and people we meet working here, it's a cool way to meet people, because the thing I like about Cabo is it has such a high repeat visitor. You know, and that's just a testament to how cool the area is. So these people that keep coming down or buy real estate, they love the area. So when they come down, like they might be coming from Seattle and it's raining, and they come down, man, and they just have these huge smiles on their face. You know, so it's really cool to meet people that really love the area, because I myself love the area.
Right. Yes. Like you say, I mean, Cabo has attracted always, you know, a lot of Californians, Arizona, the West Coast, but now you see like Chicago, New York, New Orleans, like yourself.
Florida,
I mean,
Florida.
we're seeing,
There's like, man, there's guys from like Charlotte, North Carolina.
right,
You know, speaking to some guy the other day from Idaho, I was like, man, he was like telling me where he's from. I'm like, I had to Google it, you know?
right.
Client from Wisconsin, you know, there's people from all over. So in that aspect, it's just cool because it just attracts like almost like a tribe.
Right.
You know?
And we're going to move to a subject that I really, really enjoy. I owned restaurants for 17 years. I am a foodie. I consider myself a glutton. And what are your thoughts about now the offer that Cabo has on just from taquerias to high-end restaurants? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so once again, New Orleans is like really good food. You know, I'll say like Cabo has such good food, man. And here's the bad thing is that me and my wife, we go to like, you know, 4 or 5 restaurants, you know. So everybody's like, man, you need to try this place. Or like I'll go to a restaurant, it's so good, I just order the same thing. You know, and I'm with like other people and they order something, I'm like, man, that's really good too. You know, but there's literally so many good restaurants here. Like the food scene here is incredible. And that can, a lot of people, man, they're gonna be like, hey, we're going to Flora Farms, we're going to like Toro. And I'm like, it's very rare that I go those places unless I'm with clients that want to do it. Or if I have parents in town that want to do it. So like when I say it too is I'm talking about very reasonable type budgets, not these like tourist trap places. You know,
Right.
and you have it, but you have like all the way up here for like Michelin star, all the way down to, there's a taco place and the guy's from Sinaloa. But dude, he's whipping up street tacos and my wife's like, you gotta try this place. And you know, I'm literally like, you pull up in your car and the guy just on the side of the street and the guy's like, what do you want? And he's putting it together. And we're talking, you know, from street tacos all the way up to Michelin star, you have it. And if you have a bad meal here, like I'm gonna blame you because I'm not gonna say you can't have a bad meal here, but it's hard. You have everything here. And
Yes.
every time I bring people here, like there was a guy from San Diego and we took him to Lupita and he was like, man, this is the best taco I've ever had, you know? And he's like, I love tacos. So the food here is, I'm not gonna say it's underrated, but I will say the danger of it is that there's so many good places that literally people are like, man, you gotta try this restaurant. And I'm like, man, you know?
Yeah.
You know, like literally I'm going to grab lunch with Charlie and I was like, hey, let's get sushi. And he's like, hey, are we going to Chubby Noodle? Are we going to Koi? You know, so.
We
anyway.
need to go and try those street tacos that you mentioned. I don't know
That's
if
a
I've
secret,
been there.
man.
Yes.
If you find out, man, you might go there and you might have to start increasing prices. So I might have
Yeah.
to keep that one a secret.
So when I got here, basically the restaurant scene was very limited 10 years
Yeah.
ago, and I've seen that in the last 10 years it has flourished a lot.
Yeah.
Like you said, from the top Michelin star restaurants to the mid-budget to the locals. I mean, there's some local spots that nobody knows that have amazing food, and it's not pricey. That's the other thing. If you can find those spots where the locals eat, you'll be amazed of how well you can eat and on a budget, which
Yeah.
sometimes
No, it's
good,
difficult here. You
yeah.
know, like Cabo is expensive, so it is more difficult. But food here is incredible.
Right. What do you think are the overrated themes here in Cabo, on your personal opinion?
Overrated? I'd probably just go with like places like, personally, I kind of think the marina's a little overrated. It's just all tourists. Like I call the marina Bourbon Street. You know, and it's like you don't ever catch people from New Orleans going to Bourbon Street. It's always the tourists that are
Right.
going to Bourbon Street. So, and I'm not gonna say like the marina's cool every once in a while for me, you know, especially just like, you know, like I really like Baja Cantina right there.
Right.
You know, I'll go watch sports games there sometimes, and you know, you just got like the backdrop, all the yachts and the boats. But overrated, I don't know. What would you say is overrated?
People are gonna hate me for this, but the the arch. I think it's a little
No, it's true, too.
overrated.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
no,
it's
like-
beautiful. You see it once, you see it all the time. And
No, like I had a guy and he's like, he's like, as you're driving in, like
Yeah.
you see the arch, he's like, hey, you kind of lose it around like Costco, and I was like, man, I don't even notice that stuff anymore,
Right.
So,
No,
yeah,
but
it's
I
cool.
mean, it's a must. If you come to Cabo, you go there, you take the picture, and it's a must. But you see it once,
Yeah.
and that's. So now that you have your kid here growing in Cabo, do you find that you have a good offer of schools for him to be going to? I mean, it's always important if you come and make a life here. What options do you have? Like in schools, maybe we could throw in also hospitals, which a lot of people are concerned. Are there good hospitals in the area?
So first with schools, I've been very pleasantly surprised. My son goes to a private school here, and like when I drop him off, the teachers are excited. Like they're into it. They like sometimes they joke about like who's gonna get him out of the car, you know what I mean? Like fighting over, But they're into it, man. And that's something that I personally like don't really feel in the US.
Right.
And I don't know if it feels like an underappreciated position or what. So like that's one thing, they're just into it, and like the family here is so strong that it's just like kids are like, they're important everywhere. But and the education level, be honest, man, the summers here is like 2 months, and I've seen this, like I think if you, and this is like, I honestly 100% believe this, if you took a third grader, let's just go to Mexico City or Guadalajara, and then just put him against him or her against a student in Chicago or Las Vegas, and you just did a simple math test, I'm almost certain that I think like the STEM, because they focus on like science, math, whereas in the U.S. it's kind of like more like a liberal arts, like you have like and like you have that here, but a lot of that like the music and the culture is at home.
Right.
So I've been very impressed with the education system, and if you go on a cost, if I dropped the same school that my son goes to in the U.S., I think it would be 5 times more expensive.
Wow.
Hospitals. So fortunately, I haven't had to go to the hospital. This is a mixed bag. Okay, so I have like a primary care doctor where I'll just get like physicals once a year. Really good.
Mm-hmm.
Really like him. Dr. Velasquez. I really like him. Hospitals are good here, but they're known to rip tourists off.
Right.
So if Larissa, who's behind the camera here, goes to the hospital, and then I go to the hospital, and let's say we both have a broken arm, there's a decent chance that I'm going to get charged higher. And they busted the hospitals for doing this, like 3-4 times the rate, right? So I think that's something that has to, but like, how do we do this? How do we correct this? By me telling you the doctors that aren't doing it, like Dr. Velasquez.
Or the
But as far as
hospitals.
going, or the hospitals. But,
Mm-hmm.
when my son was born, the hospital he was born in was a month old, man, and I'm talking like state-of-the-art stuff. Dude, I had to get something done for my teeth here, and like, dude, they had this little, it was like rotating around, and then like I sat down in the chair, and it was like on the screen, it's like welcome Fletcher, and like the x-rays and all this, and I was like, man, this equipment is nicer than the United States, right? But so I think the care here is really good, but once again, I tell people this, for like primary care, like maybe breaking a bone, things like that, but if we start to get into like, cancer, or like you need open heart surgery, I'm like, hey, I'm probably going to be thinking about flying into Houston,
Right.
or Dallas or New Orleans, to get something like that done. So, but once again, if we're just talking about basic, I think, even like the birth of my son and my wife, I would say that hospital was great.
Right. In recent years, I've seen that new hospitals have opened up. You have H Plus, which is a fairly new hospital. You have Hospiten. And this was a question that I was getting a lot from clients. You know, maybe they have a heart condition. Maybe they worry because they're of age, and you know what happens if this, what happens if that. You know, now this thing with the hospitals, I think it eases up on their worries about where should I go. And also what I found out is that we have a service where if you need transportation, there is actually a service where they will fly you to either Houston, San Diego, or your hospital, your personal hospital where you go to in the States, and like an air ambulance. So I think that's also a good service. All right. Well, I think we covered some good themes here. I don't know. You wanna add something?
Why don't you go one more, dude? We'll have Sven edit this. We'll do like one or two more. Go a little roll. Go about another like 2 topics or 1 topic.
Okay. So what do you think about the cost of living in the area?
It's a good question. So I would say that the cost of living in Cabo is probably about the same as the cost of living where I'm from in New Orleans.
In New Orleans.
The way and look, like I take people out, you know, so like I tell people this all the time, man, like my barber, you know, it's like 200 pesos, so it's like what, $10, $12, right? And one time he was busy, so I was out on the Pacific, and I got a haircut for 80 pesos. You know, which is like what? That's like $5. You know, and it wasn't like a bad haircut, you know, but
it does look like like an 80 peso cut.
Yeah. So what I'll say is like you can find things that are like cheap like that, but at the end of the day, Cabo is probably the most expensive city in Mexico if you take out of like the really expensive neighborhoods in Guadalajara or Mexico City or Monterrey, right? So it is expensive here. So I kind of put my cost of living on par. So if you're coming from the Midwest, I've had people tell me that it's more expensive here, and I wouldn't doubt it.
Right.
You know, if you're coming from like a city like Nashville or New Orleans, I think it'll be kind of similar. You know, like car insurance will be much cheaper, things like that. But at the end of the day, I call Cabo an island, so a lot of stuff gets shipped here, right? And it just makes it more expensive. But if you're coming from, you know, the Seattle area, Los Angeles, San Diego, like, you know, Austin, Texas, it's definitely going to be, in my opinion, depending how, I'm not talking about you going into like Chileno Bay, right? But it can definitely be cheaper. So it depends. It depends where you're shopping and things like that. It depends like, are you cool going to this grocery store versus that grocery store? Are you cool like cooking for yourself? You know, things like that. So anyway, I think the cost of living here, you know, shocks some people. But a lot of this, Tucker, you know this, a lot of this had to do with the dollar to peso relationship, which is kind of getting back to normal, which thus is making it feel cheaper again, which it is, right? Because if you're paying dollars now, they go a little bit further.
Yeah, I've been finding out, I mean, like you said, Cabo is comparable to Monterrey or the expensive neighborhoods in like San Pedro or Polanco. We are one of the most expensive, if we talk about Cabo.
Yeah.
If you go outside, maybe to La Paz.
La Paz is cheaper for sure.
Cheaper, but at the end you will find, and this I've heard from actual, you know, customers or clients that they basically feel that the everyday expenditure that they do here is less than in the States. Like you said, if you figure out where to go and you do your groceries, like haircuts, just your daily activities. Now, if you're going to high-end restaurants, of course, you're going to be spending a bunch of money. But again, if you go to eat where the locals eat, this will, at the end, save you money. You know?
Yeah. No, like, man, when I had to go to the dentist, and I speak Spanish, you know?
Dentistry.
I had to go, so I was like, I knew this place was kind of in the barrio, but I was like, man, let me just go check it out, like support a local business. And I could tell, like, the dentist was awesome. I think she was from Acapulco, and you know, almost like shocked. They're like, man, you know what I mean? It was almost like, you know, this guy should probably go to another dentist place. But like, I went in there, man, and it was like really good service. I could tell like she knew what she was doing, you know. So that's something else too, that I think like the more you're willing to get comfortable, becoming a local versus remaining a tourist. I've said this before, dude. I was on a hike, and we come down the mountain. This is up Mount Solmar, and this guy was just outside the resort, and he's like, I can tell he's kind of like lonely. So he comes up and speaks to us, and he's like, hey, you know, I've been coming to Cabo for 10 years. So my first question is like, wow, what's your favorite restaurant? And he goes, well, it's the one in the resort right next to the pool. I was like, wait, you haven't ate outside of the resort? And I'm like, man, you've been coming here for 10 years and you haven't left the resort. You might as well go to Orlando, dude. You know what I mean?
Stay in the all-inclusive.
I think a lot of people, they'll say it's expensive, and I would agree, right? But once again, are you getting a little bit more adventurous and like going to cool areas? Because like I do this all the time, man. I remember I went to this restaurant, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, I'm the only gringo, and I'm like, this is awesome, you know, because it's rare, you know. And I was like, I know I'm gonna get good service here. Like I can tell that it's just like locals, that it's gonna be like really good food. So once again, you can lower that by going to what I would consider cooler, more authentic people. And at the same token, you are helping out like a local business that really needs it.
Right. I encourage people to please leave the hotel, go and experience the area. It is super safe. I usually try to recommend renting a car to going to Todos Santos, going to the East Cape. You know, hey, if you're here, find that exploring, you know, spirit, and just step out of the hotel, because like Fletcher says, there's many gems that you can find, and you will also be helping out the local businesses. And all right, well, cool. I think it's a
yeah, no. Well,
it's a wrap up.
A good first episode. Let Tucker know what you want to cover in the next one, and we'll get onto it and see.
Send me your suggestions for the next Tucker Talk, and this is a wrap.